periodic table of the elements. So we have the vertebrate kingdom reattaining this dominion. Birds, I think, are just considered vertebrates, unless I'm mistaken. So then he moves into the world of human consciousness. And as we have seen, Gebser has broken these down neatly for us. And this is, Jung was at his weakest when it came to culture theory. He was a scientist, more or less, so he's very strong on this other stuff, but when it comes to culture, he's very sketchy. But since we've already seen Gebser's model, it maps on very well with Arthur Young's model. You have man as the primitive hunter, corresponding to the potentiality for the entire human consciousness structure, so I've written Gebser's magical down here. And then Gebser's mythical at the second stage, where you have the formation of binding into tribal societies, and this would correspond actually to the settling in the agrarian world, the discovery of agriculture and the formation of the first settled villages. Now you have people binding together into these tribal societies. And then he has the Greeks here representing the birth of self-consciousness, which corresponds to Gebser's mental structure and Steiner's intellectual soul consciousness. And this is self-consciousness, the formation of an identity, which corresponds to the animal formation of an identity with the stomach, and the plant formation of an identity with the invention of the embryo. And then he says where modern man is now is about where the clam was in its kingdom. That's how much further he believes we have to develop, how much more potentiality that the human has to unfold from out of it, which corresponds about loosely with what Steiner said. We are at the level of the consciousness soul, and we have those other levels of the spirit self, life spirit, and spirit body to look forward to in our development. So that very loosely corresponds. Plus, the level of combination corresponds to our penchant for, analysis and synthesis, putting things together into machines, and our obsession with breaking matter apart and putting it back together, plus our obsession with the determinism of materialism and matter. So he calls this objective thought, and that's the consciousness soul in Steiner. Then he puts the Kundalini structure of consciousness so that you have the segmentation of the chakras linking up with the segmentation principle going all the way up through the realm of growth, the plant-like world. But then he also has this idea that creative genius represents that in human evolution which is capable of, like plants, producing centers off itself which survive the life of the individual. He says his definition of creative genius is, once the person is gone, does the work outlast the life of the person? And if it does, that is the true test of the person's genius. It's got to survive the lifetime of the person over several generations. And it has that plant-like ability to thrust itself into the future that way. And then he says Christ and the Buddha represent, at the level of the animal, the reattainment of this new mobility of consciousness. This whole domain, remember, is capturing the mobility that light had when it started this whole thing. So he has Christ and the Buddha here, and then he leaves it blank at the 7th. He doesn't know what to put there. But that would be the omega point, sort of in Chardin, this ultimate development of human consciousness. I put Steiner's spirit, self, life, spirit, body over there, just because I thought it looked neat. And that really is Arthur Young's model, his updating of the great chain of being. And just as in the great chain of being, you have this principle of nobility. Flowering plants are more noble than all the other plants. The horse